So it became something that I always knew when I opened the Bible. I cannot reconcile it now, but I need to reconcile it if the Bible is to make sense to me.
Hi, Maanda. Great to have you with us, brother.
Hi, Chris. Nice to join you today.
Just like to introduce everyone to our brother, Maanda. His testimony in the series is interesting because he himself was a Sabbath keeper and also believed in the Father and the Son before he came to cosmology. If you would just like to give you a little bit of a background of your knowledge, your experience as you have been in the movement.
So I like how you fast forwarded me to being an Adventist, but I think I've heard part of your testimony before, how you were in the world and you were a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
And
Okay.
similar to that, I had my own start in the
Okay.
world, and I was watching the Zeitgeist and all
Oh,
those
really?
things
Yeah. That one got me.
in my varsity years, and I just felt like there was more to the world than what I was seeing. And somehow the conspiracy theories used to fascinate me because there was so much truth in them. I would look at what Hollywood was doing, what America was doing, and I would see that there was something hidden in plain sight that we were all missing. And I kind of kept that conspiracy theory mind when I came into the church. And
Right.
I did become Adventist in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very interesting way that I came into the church. I had always wanted the truth, so I would read the Bible, but for some reason, it seems as if the Bible might be open in front of you, but still be closed, in that you will read but not understand what you're reading. So I would visit a variety of churches with friends. I did grow up in the church, but there was always something that told me that there's a truth I'm not tapping into, I'm not understanding. And I did go to some weird churches where they would say they knew Daniel and Revelation and would talk prophecy, but it was very doom and gloom. One of the preachers I was listening to in varsity was Paul Washer. I don't know if you've heard of Paul Washer. So he's an American preacher who talks about sin, but in a very Methodist kind of way, where you are condemned to die a hopeless sinner. Well, at least that's what I remember of him. And all of that left me, you're still looking for answers, that there's still something out there. So I would pack Revelation and Daniel and I would read the Gospels, but still living in the world. There was a time actually I was borderline atheist because I kind of felt like, well, yeah, education does push you to be atheist. I always say to my wife, the more educated you get, the more atheist you tend to be in your sentiments. The two go hand in hand. So
yeah.
I was a biotechnologist in practice, and being in that kind of faculty where genetics and evolution are kind of like the main themes made me somewhat atheist in my beliefs.
Yeah.
So
that's the point of it, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. It is. And I think you can trace all these things back to one source if you sit for long enough and you do long enough research. So I went to the story of how I became a Christian was quite fascinating because I had done my round in the world, been a sinner, done all the things that you do as a young man, not knowing Christ. And I had gotten tired of the world. So I had literally stopped everything. I had stopped drinking all by myself, stopped everything. And I had just sat still, kind of like waiting for the next move. And I went to church. No, I didn't go to church. I went to work with a friend, and he works for a telecoms company. So he went into this remote place in a farm far away, and he was visiting an old lady to do network support. She didn't have a strong network. And as he was helping her, I was kind of walking around in her living room, and she had Daniel and Revelation charts on her wall.
Okay.
And because I had read the Bible before, I knew what they were, but I didn't understand. So we started talking about it. I was like, oh, this is charts from Daniel and Revelation. She's like, yeah, would you like to know more? I'm like, definitely. And then we started talking, and she didn't really tell me a lot more about Daniel and the Revelation. She gave me a 10-part series by Doug Batchelor, which is called The Prophecy Code. And that was going to answer my questions on prophecy. But she told me about the Sabbath. She's like, have you heard of the Sabbath? I'm like, the Sabbath? What's the Sabbath? Isn't it Sunday? She's like, no, the Sabbath is actually Saturday. She actually opened the dictionary and she showed me. And that's all the proof I needed about the Sabbath. And I came back and I watched the prophecy code and she told me about the church. So I went and I found a Seventh-day Adventist church and I went all by myself. And I kind of just never left. The singing and the kind of preaching was really unique to anything I had experienced in the world before. So I stayed. And as I was in the church, I became quite interested and quite active. So I think by the time I got baptized, I was already a deacon. Yeah, I was quite active, really willing to serve the Lord, but there was always something missing, right? So even when I went through baptismal class, the Godhead truth was something that was already beginning to bother me because the Bible didn't have anything about the Trinity. It was a concept that only existed in Adventism. And I met a guy in the baptismal class who began also to fill me with those ideas. And for some reason, God always, it's like he knows your heart and what you're looking for. So he always exposes you to the right information. So I had done a bit of research on the Godhead truth. And I had realized that there was a link between the Trinity and Catholicism. And I could use the same argument to prove the Sabbath, to also prove Trinity. And that kind of didn't sit well with me from the very beginning. So I remember after, yeah.
You said I didn't quite understand what you meant by that, proves the Sabbath.
So the Council of Trent, the Council of Nicaea, right? We use that to prove that the Sabbath was changed.
Yes.
But those are the very arguments you use to prove that the Trinity is also a Catholic doctrine.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. No, thank you.
So it felt hypocritical to me as an Adventist, proving only the one side of the story, but not getting to the other side. But obviously being new in the church and that being the only truth I knew at that time, didn't want to ruffle feathers. So I kind of left that study to evolve at its own pace. Mm-hmm. And so it did. And I became so convinced. I remember we used to do Soup Kitchen, which is where I met my wife. Every Sunday, I was driving from Soup Kitchen with a friend of mine who was an elder in the church, quite respected. And there was another guy in the back. And I actually said out to them, guys don't believe in the Trinity. And you could have had a pin drop in the car because it went silent. And I started explaining without anyone prompting me why the Trinity is wrong. All the reasons I've just given you, the fact that the Trinity, you can disprove it with the same thinking you use to disprove the Sunday Sabbath and all those things.
Yeah.
And they didn't have an argument, a counter argument. They just said, well, this is what we believe and life goes on. And it went silent and became awkward. And obviously I changed the subject, but I was not a Trinitarian and I knew it. And I kind of went along for a while because I realized, well, there's not really another place to worship. And I think that's an issue most people have. There's a place where you've got this limited truth, but there's no other place. So you kind of don't want to be worshiping alone and being lost in the world. And that's what kept me in Adventism a bit longer than I should have stayed. So once I found that truth on the Trinity, I mean, my reasoning has always been, if I cannot disprove something from the Bible, it means it might be true. And if I find something to be true, I have to do it because otherwise I'm being a hypocrite. So I continued to study this Godhead truth. And the more I studied, the more I realized, well, there were actually a lot of people who believed in it. And I read some books and I realized all the pioneers were actually non-Trinitarian. And that was quite helpful.
Yeah.
But then the problem came with when you study the Bible, there are texts that stand out to you and actually challenge your understanding of the Bible. And the creation was always that place. When I read Genesis all the way to the floods, I would have scriptures I could not reconcile with the rest of scripture. And it just challenged my understanding.
Yeah, you try to fit it in with the globe or whatever, but you can't seem to get it to match.
Exactly.
You read it over and over again, but you just can't really come to a conclusion. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it doesn't fit into your worldview. And I mean, think about the fact that I come from a scientific background. It makes it even worse. So that science is buried quite deep. And the problem people do not see with the educational system is we've got this unchallenged and mostly unproven hypothesis that have been taught to us as a gospel. And it forms our worldview. That's actually the context on which we learn everything around us. So even when you read a Bible, if you come from a science classroom, you read it with a globe earth in mind. That's the only way you can read it.
Because there's no other alternative.
Exactly.
There's nothing else.
But the more you read the Bible, the more you get to those places of friction. And I like how God intentionally designs for that error and truth cannot sit together without rubbing each other the wrong way. So I would read the account of the floods, and it would say the windows of heaven were open. And I was like, okay, so the windows of heaven, what are those? Because when you become Adventist, you get taught to apply Miller's rules of Bible explanation, right? So you get taught that something is taken literally unless it is, you've got a reason to believe it's figurative. And even when it's figurative, you need to understand what the figure symbolizes and then you apply it literally. Yeah. And I mean, if you are going to jump into the murky terrain of saying that Genesis is figurative, you find yourself going back to, actually you become worse than a scientist, because where do you stop, right? Then you start harmonizing, you become a theistic evolutionist.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. You spiritualize everything away.
Then we're going to spiritualize the 6 days and the seventh day. It's all, yeah.
Exactly.
You either make it all literal or you make it all symbolic. There's no other way.
Exactly. So once you have a million years of God creating, then you might as well be an evolutionist. So I always knew that there's a line I need to draw between science and the Bible. And that line I just could not find. And the one thing that I appreciate that God has given me from birth is, and it sometimes drives my wife crazy, but I've said to her, it's okay to not have answers. It's okay to say, I don't know until you find out. And that's kind of my philosophy in life. I do not give you an answer until I'm certain that I'm giving you the right answer. So it became something that I always knew when I opened the Bible. I cannot reconcile it now, but I need to reconcile it if the Bible is to make sense to me. Because there were many verses that I could not reconcile. I mean, I was not aware of all the myriad of scriptures that are used today to prove the flat earth. But when you read about the heavens passing away as a scroll, I mean, you think, okay, so there's windows in heaven, and the heaven is gonna be folded away. How can you fold the air away? I mean, it defies reasoning. So there were always question marks.
Space.
Exactly.
Nothing rolled together as a scroll.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, and the fact that when Jesus would come, and that's the one that used to get me, all eyes would see him at the same time. And that began to get me questioning. And obviously, at the same time that I'm a Christian, I'm still a conspiracy theorist. Somehow you never quit it. It's like a very nice habit that you always keep.
Yes. Someone told me about that verse that they would see him like spinning around, like, like it would, as if he would come and you'd see him like, which is ridiculous.
But that's not the same time.
No, it's not. When you read that verse, the thought is every eye shall see him simultaneously. Anyway.
Yeah.
Continue.
So I mean, so those became problems for me. And then obviously, for some reason, that's the very same things that you were doing. So conspiracy theories, I was still watching those.
For me, it sounds like similarly, when I started coming to church, the conspiracy theories sort of took a little bit of a break for me. They kind of just became, I still believed in chemtrails, and I was already anti-vax, and I was already, knew the moon landing was a hoax. But those things sort of they weren't as prominent at that time for me. I don't know if it was the same for you.
Yeah.
But
It's as if
when
God
yeah,
takes a break. He wants you to take a break so that he can feed you
yeah,
it give you a context that you're missing,
yeah,
and then
that's right.
everything will come together in a very good way later.
Yeah, that's right. And in a sense, flat Earth made all those things. It was almost a trigger to bring all those things that we knew, kind of made them more relevant again.
Yeah.
Because the cosmology, the flat Earth is the biggest conspiracy that exists, really. And we're seeing now with this new, what we call it, the global event that's happening at the moment, and the medicine they're offering to cure it. All of that, to be able to stand against all of that, you need to be conspiracy minded. So as I see, this cosmology was almost a trigger that sort of started to bring this conspiracy thing back into, I guess, the sort of the mind, because you have to be this way minded if you want to avoid being taken down by this, new medical crisis that's happening at the moment, if you know what I mean.
And that's the thing. And the sad thing about all the people that are involved in these conspiracy theories is they don't put all of it together, because all of it are part of one picture. It's one truth, but they're treated as many separate truths. And what happens when you become a Christian and you bring the Bible in is you actually can fit all the pieces together, and you come out with a very complete picture.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's the way that it all starts to make sense.
Yeah.
And it's the only way that gives you hope with all of that knowledge of the conspiracy that's happening. I actually became quite distraught when I knew all that without knowing the truth. It just drives you crazy.
No, it does. It's quite depressing to be a conspiracy theorist without having the one piece of the puzzle that makes it all
that's
worth
right.
it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was wandering all around, and you get them in sequence. So I remember I had just watched a JF Kennedy documentary, which has disappeared from YouTube, which shows the fact that the people that were pinned for it were not actually pinned. And I had also read the book. There's a book called The Secret Terrorist, written by some Adventist guy. Which actually,
I know him.
Yeah. So it connects all those
Bill
things
Hughes.
together. Bill Hughes, yes. Who's also a Trinitarian. So sometimes people stop short of the truth. So I read that book, and I already knew when I watched that documentary, I knew the conclusion. And when you know the conclusion, you kind of watch wanting to see what conclusion people will draw, especially when they say that they're going to draw a different conclusion. So I watched that. And for some reason, I don't know, the moon thing just came in. That became my new pet conspiracy.
Yeah. Right.
Until so I watched all the stuff on the internet, and then a movie came out. And for some reason, I knew that America's or Hollywood style is, if it's true, they're going to make a movie about it, and it's going to be either mocking the conspiracy, or it's going to be reverse psychology, right? Like The Matrix is reverse psychology. Or the movie they made was called, what's that movie called? The Avalanche, or something like that. So the movie called The Avalanche, and I watched it when I was a young Adventist, I think 2016. It's about how the moon landing is faked by being shot in a studio somewhere.
Okay.
Believe it or not. And I was like, hang on, this is actually the truth. I said to my wife, we're actually watching reality made into a movie.
Was that a Hollywood movie?
It is a Hollywood movie. And I know why they do it. They do it so that when we speak out and we say, well, this guy's fake the moon, they're like, yeah, you're taking movies too seriously, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right.
So when I watched that, it became a really, really big problem for me. And then for some reason, the link to the Bible was made. because I was like, well, if we didn't go to the moon, then we've got a serious problem. It means we have never proven that this Earth is a globe, which means all of science is left with a big question mark.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I brought that into the Bible, it really made sense. And that's when I kind of started researching these things. I mean, the research is always continuous, and it's not like you sit at a library all day. It's always thoughts that come at different times. I remember one time I was at a train, and I went into the Bible and I opened the King James with the concordance, and I clicked on the word for what is it called? The firmament.
Yeah.
And then I went and I Googled the word
Rakia.
rakia. And then I saw the pictures of what the Jewish people used to believe the rakia was, and how for them the earth was shaped. And it blew my mind. I was like, hang on, something is really wrong here. The people that wrote the Bible for us actually believed in a different shape of the earth to what we believe today.
When was this? What year?
I think this was 2018.
The flat earth was pretty big at that stage already.
Yeah, but I didn't know about the flat earth. So I didn't know. I didn't even know the word flat earth at that time.
Yeah, right.
I just knew the word rakia meant a physical barrier. I knew that they believed that there was water above the firmament. I knew all those things, and I kept searching, right? And obviously, I ended up coming across the flat earth, and then I would go on YouTube and I would watch all those guys. And the sad thing that YouTube does is it will filter you for the less serious people first.
Oh, they put the shills on top. They've got all these supposed flat earthers that they're on top.
Yeah. So you watch all that and it's missing and it's all hidden.
Mm-hmm.
But then I went and I started doing my research, and obviously you're going to do keywords like flat earth and Adventism, and then you're going to hit a very painful wall of Ellen White rebuking this guy and refusing to give him an audience. And you will even reach a place where you will see how it's cropped up in the past in Adventism and it's been debunked. But then the one thing that I took away from that whole experience, so there was even a time, I think is it Ministry Magazine or whichever mainstream Adventist magazine, where they actually cite it. So they answer the question on the flat earth and they cite Ellen White's experience with, I don't remember the gentleman's name, who was also Adventist. And then they say that argument was settled long ago. So there's no need to actually talk about it. So they don't look at the biblical perspective, or they just take Ellen White and say, this is how she answered him. Mm-hmm. And if you look carefully, you will see that if you consider all the testimonies together, she doesn't actually say that he's lying. She actually says God has not given her light on the subject, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So the Bible has those verses. So once you've started studying the flat earth, you realize there's all these verses that are saying things that are directly contrary to the worldview you hold. The sun is the one that's moving in all the verses. It stops. It stands still. The world is fixed. It cannot be moved. Right. That's when you started to really study the perspective of the Bible. Mm-hmm. And then you are left with this big question mark to say, but okay, Ellen White doesn't agree with me. And I was really, really grateful for the study that was done by Tom, because then it reconciles that and it gets the monkey, the proverbial monkey off your shoulder to say, that's sorted. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's how it was for us too. Before we saw that statement where she said she didn't know, we were in a bit of a real rock and a hard place. Didn't know where to go with it.
Yeah, because you don't want to disagree with the prophet.
No, but you can't, at the same time, you can't dismiss the mountain of biblical evidence.
Yeah.
So that was the key.
I fell back on the statement where she says God has more light to reveal to his people. But then she said also, the light that God will reveal will not be contrary to the light that has already been revealed. So I kind of waited knowing that in good time, God would reveal something. So I kind of just relaxed. I was like, it's fine. I do not know right now. I will know when the time is right. And I waited. But by the time I got to know about you guys, I had already actually reached a conclusion, and I actually needed just to know that there are other people in Adventism who've reached the same conclusion. And that for me was the biggest win when I encountered earthen vessels. But I had studied the whole thing. I'd actually given Bible studies on it to close friends and family, because you always want to do it in safe circles, right?
Yeah, but you should be able to share it with believers. People that profess to believe the Bible,
Yeah.
they should actually have a look at what the Bible has to say.
Now those people I challenge.
Yeah.
Those people I challenge, yeah.
When God himself says to Job, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?" You can't turn around and say that the earth doesn't have any foundations.
Yeah.
When the Bible says the earth is stable, that it should not be moved, and that the sun moves, they should answer that, but they can't. They never try and answer the Bible because they know they can't. They just come at you with science.
I did a study for my father-in-law when we visited him. So he's Adventist, still in the church, and whenever we visit them, I preach, and they're happy to listen to what I have to say. So I did a study for them, and I titled it, "Who's Lying?" Right? And we looked at all those verses, and we were contrasting each one of them with what science says. And I wanted them to choose to say whether science is telling the truth or the Bible is lying. And I kind of left it with them to say, who's lying? You decide, But for me, it's clear. Both require faith, and believing the Bible requires less faith than is required for you to believe the globe earth. Because when you put it all together, and that's what I said to them, when you put it all together, it takes you to evolution. And that's what many people do not see. Many people think that they can have the globe earth without evolution, but that's actually not a fact. When you trace it to its source, the very same people that gave you the globe earth are the very same people that gave you the Big Bang. And the Big Bang is like the father of evolution, right? So when you put the two together, by believing in a globe earth, you are an evolutionist. You have to embrace your position and stick to it. And once you're an evolutionist, you cannot say you believe in the Bible. You have to dispel the Bible, because the Bible becomes an old lady's tale.
They gave it to the world in a different order, but I surmise that they had it all planned before the debut of the heliocentric model in 1541 with Copernicus.
I think so.
Because they all work together as an organic whole. Like you have the Big Bang, and the explosion from the Big Bang set all the particles in motion that gravity collected, and then the sun's gravity caught the earth, and then the earth's gravity caught the moon, and that was all exploding out of the Big Bang. And then life slowly evolved on earth. They're all one belief. You can't believe one section without the rest. You can't.
And then today it's all moving around because of that motion that was triggered at the Big Bang.
Big Bang, yeah. So it's really just, you have to cut it all off, or you have to accept the whole lot if you want to be intellectually honest.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway.
Exactly. So that's what I threw to them to say, so if you're going to have the science view, take the science view. And again, ask yourself some obvious questions about the moon landing, because without the moon landing, you've got absolutely no proof apart from what the science textbook tells you, that the earth is actually the shape that it is. So are you going to take that one account? And let's consider some of its obvious question marks, if we can put it that way. The fact that the technology today has advanced so much, and computers can now fit on a nail, like a human nail, and yet we do not have the technology to go to the moon. And we went in 1968, was it?
I think it's 69.
Yeah, 1969, we went to the moon when a computer filled the whole room, but we can't go there today. So are you telling me something? I mean, yes, NASA might have lost the technology, but the technology should be easy to reproduce today.
Yeah. Now, they destroyed that technology. And it's a painful process to build it back again, according to Ron Pettit.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
Yes, and then the tapes also mysteriously disappeared that show everything.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So you're going to hang your hat on that. So that's kind of like where I left it with them, but you get to decide. And then once you've started on the Bible study side of it and you've moved away from trying to prove it, you then begin to see it in other places in the Bible in the most amazing way. So you go and read Romans chapter 1, which without your understanding of the flat earth is just another piece of scripture. I mean, I used to think about it as a way of God, as God's way of rebuking homosexuality. But then I realized, no, the creation story is very interwoven into the whole chapter 1 of Romans, and how denying the true nature of creation leads you to condemnation, and it leads you to a darkness that God just discards you altogether and leaves you to believe whatever you want. And that's what leads you to all these things that make you.
That's right. If the reason people deny creation, it says in Romans 1, it says that they did not like to retain God in their knowledge.
Yes.
And then therefore they invented all these theories that sort of help them sleep at night, or help them reject the existence of God, such as life spontaneously coming into existence after millions of years after the Big Bang or whatever. It's just a philosophy that helps people to they choose to believe because they don't want to believe in God, because they don't want to be held accountable to Him.
You're very right in saying it helps people sleep at night for now.
Yeah.
But trouble is coming.
Yeah, they receive not the love of the truth that they might be saved. Therefore, God shall send them a strong delusion that they should believe a lie.
It's the very same sentiment of Romans chapter 1 as well.
It is. And it says, they believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. They preferred to have pleasure in sin than to believe the truth. That's why all these philosophies such as the evolutionary model appeal, because they give license to living like an animal, since that is all that you are.
Yeah.
So just kind of switch gears again a little bit here. So you've accepted the cosmology and you've seen it to be the truth. And for everybody that accepts it, it changes their lives, like unquestionably,
Yeah.
Your outlook, everything. It's a real revelation. But what would you say from your present state that you're in? What would you say that it what direction did it send you in, if any?
So I actually am an environmentalist by practice.
Right.
And one of the things I do on a daily basis is write about climate change until obviously I decide to stop participating in that economy. Everything makes sense right now. Everything fits together. I think the cosmology truth has given me the last piece of the puzzle. And obviously the color is still being filled into all the pieces, but I think everything makes so much sense right now. So when I see the Pope talking about the earth, and there's this thing that has been started, they're having prayer for the regeneration of the earth. I forgot what it's called. It's something that's happening now often.
For the Vatican's organizing it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw them sort of rejoicing that all these cities, all the pollution was going away because of and stuff like that. People weren't driving their cars anymore. And
there's even the global Catholic climate movement. So all those things, I mean, working in the environmental sphere, I know that environmentalists are desperate for a solution to come from anywhere. And also knowing what's happening at the World Economic Forum. I mean, I hope you've read the book that Klaus Schwab, or heard about it, the one that is written, The Global Reset or something like that.
Oh, The Great Reset. I've heard about it. Yeah, that you in 2030 you will own nothing, you'll be happy, etc. Yeah.
Yes, but he says some things that are very true in the short term. It's so I always say to people jokingly, that book is like a script of from here to 2030.
Mm-hmm.
But what he doesn't tell you is the other thing that you see when you're a climate change person who knows God is you can easily see how religion is going to extend a hand, and scientists will happily take help from everyone and anyone, because for them, this agenda is so great that it needs all hands on deck, right?
Right.
So what's going to happen is there's going to be a coming together of this movement. So the political, the business, and the
Science.
religious.
And
Exactly.
science.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then the Pope is going to say the earth needs a rest. We saw during the lockdown that the environment could actually recover. So we're going to have Sunday as this day. And what do you think scientists are going to say? Well, religion is doing what everyone is failing to do. So let's get behind religion. Let's encourage this. Let's actually do it. It's for the greater good.
Yeah.
And then we start on that slippery slope. Before you know it, Sunday is enforced the same way that lockdown is being enforced.
Right.
And that's it.
And
so it
and
makes sense.
they've got the same heretics as well. You
Yeah.
know, they've got the same ones that don't believe in the religious doctrines, that don't believe in the medical doctrines and the scientific doctrines.
You've got a perfect pilot in the current lockdowns for enforcing something because it's science. Science is telling us that the climate is changing.
Yeah.
And we need to do something quickly, and we need everyone's support. And you know what the business world is going to bring? They're going to bring the technology. And you know what the government is going to do is they're going to restrict you, because we're doing it for the environment. So you're not allowed to do certain things on Sunday, because Sunday is a day for the earth to recover. So you're not allowed to go about your economic activity.
Yeah, right.
And the book is actually quite telling. I mean, he says some damning things. He says there's going to be, so he talks about all the resets that are going to happen within this great reset. And he talks about the security reset, where you are losing more and more of your freedoms in order for everyone else to be secure. And then he's talking about the role of technology in that, how the use of AI and monitoring of people and smart homes and smart cities. So it's really, you can really see the whole web together of where we headed.
Yep.
And it's really amazing. And for me, it brings comfort. I'm more anxious for the people that don't see the whole picture, because I say to people, aren't you worried about the totalitarian nature of government today? How everything is just, you're losing all your liberties. People are like, yeah, but I mean, we're getting safer. I'm like, you do know you're not going to get those freedoms back. They're like, what should we do? I'm like, well, you can't do anything, but you just need to know.
You can't do anything as far as fixing it, putting it back to normal, but you can it should awaken you to, spiritual realities. Yeah.
That truth for me brings a lot of pieces together in a very interesting. The story is beginning to make sense. The end chapter is being written out quite clearly. And you can see the other thing that, the one thing that I might say makes me anxious is I ask myself, am I ready? Because it seems all the things are in place. I mean, recently, the war between the agitation in the Middle East,
Israel,
Palestine, Israel. You know that friction there is going to be the trigger for Turkey to make the move, right? So that's Daniel 11:45 waiting to happen. And then you look at science, and you look at politics, and you look at business. You can see that everyone is ready to play their part.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's almost as if you can hear God saying, hold a bit longer because my people are not ready. And I think that's exactly what's holding everything together, is we are still not ready. We are still feeling like we are self-sufficient. We think the truths we know are the passport to get us into heaven without the application of those truths. But God wants us to realize our utter dependence and our utter helplessness and utter lack of sanctification, so that we can fully depend on Jesus. And that's, I think, the thing that's holding the whole thing back. Because it says, I think there's a verse that says that the whole creation groaneth. It's waiting for the manifestation of Christ in us, something like that. So as soon
Yeah.
as Christ is manifested in his people, you know what's going to happen.
Yep, that's right.
The one other thing is the other conspiracy that is quite important, which Ellen White also talks about, and she doesn't get too much into it, but she alludes to the importance of this Jesuit movement and the role it would play.
Yeah.
And when we were actually studying with Ronnie the other day, it actually became so obvious to us that the role that this whole thing plays, right? So
The Jesuit order.
the Jesuit order, yeah.
Ah,
We were reading about how Daniel had seen into the future and he'd seen God's church plunged into darkness, and that was the Dark Ages. And obviously, people think that that was the worst time for the church.
right.
But then Satan realized that he needed a change in strategy. He needed a better PR in order for people to accept him, because the Dark Ages were gruesome. I mean,
Yeah.
people being killed, sawn in half. It was really, it was really written in his handwriting, and he didn't like that.
Okay. Yeah.
So when the deadly wound was inflicted, he came out with the best plan. And I said to Ronnie, it's really scary how well laid the plan is, because not only did the system infiltrate the education system of the world and make education a global thing, it infiltrated all the churches, it infiltrated all the countries. So politics is all infiltrated.
Yeah.
And it means that you are fighting against an enemy at all levels. So people are not going to hear this message, because people are pre-programmed in every corner, in every setting, to not accept the truth, because Satan has found a way to really package it in a way that appeals to people. Education appeals to people, religion appeals to people, politics appeals to people in different ways.
Yeah,
And
the partisan sort of way, you've got to stand up for your thing, whether it's Marxism, conservatism, science, whatever it is. The truth is hostile to all of those things.
Exactly. And at the top, like Albert Pike says, at the top, all these people know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So you go high enough, someone will know that we actually are serving a different master. I mean, and that's why the whole Freemasonry thing is in every setting, whether it's education, it's religion, all the Freemasons, you go high enough, you will find them in all these things. So it makes, and that's when I felt helpless, because I said to Ronnie, we have a thankless task here. We have a very, very tall order of trying to warn a world for which the lies are so entrenched that they're not going to hear us. And that's what is going to need the pouring out of the latter rain, because it's going to take heavenly strength to shake people out of that slumber.
Yeah, because they're under a spell.
It is. It is a very strong.
It's a spell. It's not. People don't think that stuff is real.
Yeah.
But there's never been more sorcery in the world than now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're also competing with media, which is like every day just solidifying.
That's right. Yeah.
That kind of thinking. And what the media is doing is like Satan is already going ahead of us to tell people that we're coming, and he's mocking us before them, so that when we come, it looks like we're the false prophets. Whether you're going to tell people that Hollywood is all a farce and it's teaching you the reverse gospel, people will be like, you're taking your movies a bit too seriously.
Yeah.
So
it's ingenious.
It's really, it's really ingenious. It's really, really ingenious, and it's going to take divine strength to pull people away from that kind of thinking.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it does. It takes God to shine a ray of light into your mind. Yeah.
Yeah. And it all combines. Can you see how everything comes together at the end? It all comes together.
Yeah, like that's why, I'm going to bring it back to it. That's why cosmology is such a perfect part of it, because it's evident that you can come to cosmology just without the Bible. Many people do, because it's just, there's no evidence whatsoever for us flying around. It's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. There's no evidence whatsoever. So you can come to these truths. They're self-evident, you know.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, once you do, you've naturally led to the Bible, and then once you're there, you're led to the creation. You're led to the Sabbath. You're led to literally translating the Bible, which is the Bible's the only true detector of error. So it can just immediately, you know, shake all that rubbish that you've learned your entire life out of your mind. It's amazing. It's a real key for all of this spell that's been over the world, and God has kept it until now, until the spell has really like reached its, you know, apex, and God has just provided a key that can just knock it out really quickly. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's the
why
reason.
Yeah. That's why Jesus says in John, you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free.
Yeah, that's right.
And for some reason, you never find peace when you don't have answers. I found that in these circles, it's people who are looking for the truth.
That's right.
And they do not rest until they find the truth. And even when the truth comes at a very high cost of being ostracized and being called all these things and being labeled a lunatic, you are a very peaceful lunatic because you know that you found the answers you were looking for. You know how the story ends. You know, you feel at peace.
That's right. Yeah.
Otherwise, you throw it away, but then you're chasing your tail and it just doesn't make sense. So
you don't have peace. You don't have, if you don't tell people, you don't have peace. Like I'm happy to be looked at in that way because, you know it's the truth. Anyway, I don't know.
But it's like the hoop you have to jump through in order for you to fully give yourself to Jesus. And I think that's why it's important that these truths are quite as testing as they are. Because if you are really willing to follow Jesus, you'll follow him wherever he takes you, right? Wherever the truth takes you, that's where you will go. And you get to this really testing truth and you realize, hang on, this is really testing my fidelity either to God or to whatever it is that I want to believe. I mean, I thought the Sabbath was testing, but no, when you get to hear about the cosmology truth, you realize you're going to be a loner in the world. And you're going to have to choose whether you're going to choose your earthly friends to make everyone happy and walk away from God, or you're going to be true to yourself and believe the truth as God reveals it and live the consequences with him. Yeah. And it's kind of like the decision or resolution I had to make when we started the ministries. I got to a point where I had to fully say to God, look, I'm willing to follow you wherever you take me. I might have to lose my job for it. I might lose my credibility for it, but what good is a credibility built on lies, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm willing to just go along with God and see where this thing lands me. I'm not going to go looking for trouble.
No.
But I'm now happy to tell everyone about my faith. Now I go shopping and I tell people, look, hey, I'm a preacher. I've got a ministry. Please check it out. And
no, that's good.
I'm more open to talk to people about God than I was before, because back then I was trying to be someone I was not, to fit into to a box that we're prescribed with, which brings me to maybe the last point that I would like us to touch on, which is political correctness and how that whole movement has been created as a self-policing of humanity to not venture into talking about certain things. So it's like there's a self-policing system where if enough people believe something, you cannot question it because then you are trying to divide society.
It's like the heresy of the Middle Ages. It's the same.
It is. If you're caught with a Bible, you're the one who's wrong. But
or if you question the priests, then that's someone's got a dob on you.
Yeah.
Send you to the Inquisition.
Exactly. You just need to go buy your indulgences and be quiet and continue to enjoy your sin quietly. So it's sad that the world has come to that, but we have opted into the manufactured consent. We've not been forced in, and everyone is now just going along with it. And it's gotten too far down the line that we all can't opt out.
That's right. Yeah. No, that's an important point. really, that really is the heart of the sort of the mindset that people need to have in order to get through this. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been great talking to you, brother. We'll,
Yeah.
And I'd just like to let the people know, the listeners, that if you want to get in touch with Maanda, perhaps you live in South Africa and you'd like to have some fellowship or attend his, Maanda has his own ministry over there, and we'll provide the details for that in the description below. So if anyone wants to get in touch with him and check it out, we encourage that, and he'll have his way of contacting him. So yeah, we just pray that the interview has been a blessing to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.